Okay, so hello, good evening, everyone. What's good? What's good? What's good? You're in for a treat tonight. Because we have a really good show. I cannot wait to just share some of the information with you guys that we have put together for you. My co-host is absolutely amazing. AKAN is going to be joining us shortly, and I just want to give you just a little bit of background on what it is that we're going to be talking about this evening. I feel like this is so dark, you guys, but it is what it is at this point. More importantly is the content. So on WAGE, right, which is an acronym for women empowering, I'm sorry, WAGE, women advocating for gender equality. Oh, you can tell I'm running back and forth, right? But on a more serious note, these are the issues that address women. And, you know, as I was talking with somebody recently, a lot of wonderful conversations always generate really good topics that I think are closely related to elephants in the room, topics that people really don't genuinely talk about, especially with a well-rounded discussion filled with people with different perspectives. Now, Sarah Bartman we're going to talk about, but I want to just quickly go over the title of this show tonight. Basically, we're talking about how hold on, let me get it. I don't want to guess at this. You guys just stay with me shortly. And forgive me for not already having everything up and running in a way, because I honestly just came in. Anytime, you know, it's called for me to be inside the city to doing some things to help, that's what I do. So the over-sexualization of America. We want to talk about this because it's a big deal, not just here in the city of Newark, which we're going to relate it back to, but not just with politics, not just on the workplace, right? Not just how people see each other, but just in America, period. Just exploring whether or not we are, as a country, over-sexualized. And the subtopic is, this is a discussion on whether or not sexualization, right, is being a distraction that is impeding collective progress. And again, with that being said, I want to bring to you my co-host for the evening, AKAN. So welcome.
Hey, how you doing? All
Hello.
right.
I am
Yeah,
so
how you doing tonight?
I'm doing absolutely amazing. Thank God. Right. So I'm so happy that you came on, because I always enjoy our conversations. Rod, you are, as you already know, I always tell you, a wealth of knowledge. I love your perspectives on things. And even when they're different from mine, I always learn the most. And I just want to bring these conversations to the public arena so that, you know, people can pick it, choose what they like, what they don't like. If anybody wants to, add, listen, the comment section below is for you to participate, right? This is why I love the interactive social media. So it gives, the ability to do so. So for those of you who saw the flyer, there was a woman there. And I think that's how we're going to start the show. We're just going to talk a little bit about who that woman is. I'm going to share something with you, and we'll move on from there. But basically, the woman's name is Sarah Bartman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to briefly, just introduce to you who she is and why we're talking about her. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I think we pretty much get the point of where we're headed with tonight's discussion. Sarah Bartman, with her, huge body parts, if you will, was paraded around in a circus. And if you did get a chance to read, it showed that this was done, right, to show the world and specifically America that we as a people were over sexualized. And so fast forward, right, when this was something that was so odd to some people, never mind the fact they tried to make dresses to make their body parts look like that, right? And so fast forward to today, where we have people getting lip injections, right? Because it spoke of her lips to getting butt injections. And this is a big deal to me because as a Black woman, like many of you I see on here watching right now, you can't help how your body looks unless you augment it, right? And so we have so many people that are augmenting their bodies. And the story that comes quickly to my mind is the story with K. Michelle, who augmented her body. Right? I don't know if you're familiar with this story.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah. And then she became so discouraged and upset that she felt like men was just looking at her for sex. Duh.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you become objectified. And that's a word that's really not talked about in high school. To be honest, I became first familiar with the word when I got in college. So people look at you like an object, right? You take that root word. And then the reason why it's so difficult for me, because as a school teacher, I may have changed, and this is something I have never told people, so I'm sharing it because I think, it bears relevance to tonight's discussion. I would maybe change my clothes about 5, 6, maybe sometimes 7 times in the morning before I went to work, because it's like anything that I would wear, it just always looked different from if somebody with a smaller physique or body would wear. So I always wanted to look professional, and I found that to be very challenging at times, right? And then not only that, it gives negative attention. Like, I'm a thinker, right? And I don't think anyone will debate me on that. And so I want to talk about the things that I'm thinking about, the things that I know about. So I'm talking. And what happened many times is that, people are not listening to what you're saying, but they're looking at your body, they're examining your physicality, and they're making judgments, right, on you based on the way that you look. And sometimes it's not always good. So we're going to start this. I wrote down some questions, Rod. I hope you don't mind that I want to start off asking you. And you guys, again, please feel free to put questions in the comment section and I'll come back. So Rod, the first question is, where does the over-sexualization of our community descend from?
Well, it descends from back in the ancient world, back when Greece invaded Africa, mainly Egypt. When the Greco-Roman culture was enforced on the people in Egypt, what happened was they brought forth a culture of sexual deviance, rape, bestiality, and pedophilia, which ended up becoming ingrained in the Egyptian culture during the 300 years that Greece was in rule over there in Egypt. This was the era of Alexander the Greek and the Ptolemy era, when the Ptolemies was in rule. So that they ended up injecting it in the culture at that time when they had invaded Africa back then, mainly Egypt, and they brought forth perverse culture that we was totally estranged to at that time of sexual deviance and perverse behavior.
Right. So this wasn't a good thing, right? This wasn't something to be proud of. This wasn't something that marked a time of, like I said, that like the whole sex thing, period. And just that, the sex farm. Can you tell us something about what was the sex farms? What was that about?
Well, sex farms was established. They were established breeding ground. That was in Virginia, in the Eastern Shore of Maryland. This when slave masters used to force enslaved women and underage enslaved girls to bear children from rape, to birth slaves. And also they would force enslaved males to have sex with enslaved women, also enslaved young girls to birth slaves. They were calling it manufacturing slaves, especially when it became illegal to import slaves from Africa and the Caribbean. They ended up creating these breeding grounds so they could manufacture slaves, so they didn't have to import or try to illegally import, African or Caribbean slaves, and also so they didn't have to purchase slaves. So this was an act that was being done to manufacture slaves at that time. When the enslaved males was having sex with the enslaved women and underage girls, there was no emotional attachment at that time. We wasn't allowed to be husbands. We wasn't allowed to be fathers. We was allowed to be breeders at that time.
Breeders,
okay?
Like animals.
Yeah. Like we was, the men were classified as bucks. They was calling us bucks. So they was treating us like animals. Just our living conditions. We was living in squalor. We was living in the barns with animals. Some of the slaves and some of the slave living quarters that we was living in at that time. So it was, the breeding grounds, which was sex farms. They was considered manufacturing slaves when they was performing these sexual acts. The slave masters was impregnating young girls and enslaved women, and they had enslaved males impregnating the young girls and enslaved women. But like I said, when a lot of the times they would throw the women in cages with the enslaved males, and there was no emotional attachment. It wasn't like they was developing love for each other. They wasn't allowed to really know each other. A lot of these acts was performed by strangers. The enslaved males, they was estranged to a lot of the enslaved women, on the plantations at that time. They didn't have unions. They wasn't in relationships. They was just putting men with women and men with little girls. Sometimes they were family members that was mating with each other to produce offspring.
And they didn't care. And this is what happened to us somehow, even though we brought forth civilization, right? But let's go back for a minute. I remember reading a book once. I think it was Mamie's, Coons, Mulattoes, and Bucks. I'm sure I screwed that title up, but you get the point, right? And I think that a buck was referred to, or they referred to young black men as bucks. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, bucks. When you look at the slave masters and the history of slavery, they wanted to make us a subhuman type of individual as far as the men. They didn't want to look at us as men. They didn't want the world to look at us as men so they could justify slavery. They wanted to look at us as animals. They had us classified as chattel property, and chattel is just a French word of cattle. So they had us classified as animals. So they wanted to be desensitized to what they was doing to us. So they classified us as bucks. Like an animal, like a horse is considered a buck. That's how they had us classified in slavery. This is so people won't have any type of empathy to what was happening to us back when we was in slavery. They looked at us as a dominant animal, a strong animal. They looked at us as, exactly. They looked at us as nothing but an animal that can produce other animals. And when we was talking about Sarah Bartman, she was a zoo attraction. They made her look like this subhuman type of animal, and nothing more than that. They didn't make us equal to them as far as human. They kept us outside the human family just so they can justify enslaving us by classifying us as animals, because if they classified us as humans, that would have been considered crimes against humanity. So this is the reason why they classified as animals. The men was looked at as bucks, as a dominant animal, but lesser than a white man. They didn't have us classified as humans. So this was a way to justify their crimes against humanity.
Do you think that the over-sexualization that exists, do you think that is something that derived from this history that's important, what do you think about that?
Yes, I feel that the pathology comes from slavery. There was never no therapy for the trauma that we had went through at that time. 300 years of chattel slavery and all this trauma, from the rape, the pedophilia, the buck breaking, which when the slave master was raping men, A lot of the breeding, being on sex farms, not allowing to be men, only allowing to be slaves, looked at as an animal. Yes, I think that a lot of the mental trauma and the PTSD that we went through, there was never no therapy for us. They just released us out into society, and this pathology was carried on from generation to generation. So it stems back to slavery, where you have culture where we have pedophilia, where we have sexual deviance and sexual perversion.
Wow. So when it comes to us as a collective, wait a minute, is that music I hear? Hey,
Somebody getting a two-step on, huh?
yeah, the DJ gotta knock it off. I don't know where that's coming from, guys. I apologize for that. Okay, that's kind of weird. Okay, there it is.
Okay.
So again, my question was going to be, do you think that this impacts the collective now in terms of perversion? We are aware of, stories with R. Kelly and a lot of other people. Okay, he's definitely not the only one. Unfortunately, I feel that he was used as the poster child for something.
Yeah, he was used as a proxy. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And this is something that goes on a regular. Do you think that this level of perversion impacts our community in terms of us making progress? And the reason why I asked that, and again, I put something up yesterday, and anytime that I put something up that's even closely resembling something that could be construed as something sexual, and not me, of course, but it was something, a video that I posted up, it always gets more reactions. More reactions. Do you think that that type of distraction, and again, I've been to the masjid before, right, for prayer, and I notice how they have the women in the back and the men sit in the front. And I've often heard that was for purposes of for the men not being distracted. So if it's something that is being done in a place of prayer, right? It kind of is an indicator of how distracting, I guess, a man can be, right? And so again, what do you think about the distractions of just, the perversion that does exist? We're not gonna act like it doesn't. And does that impact our progress as a collective?
I think that, a lot of the sexual exploitation that goes on in American society, through videos, through the music, through movies, I think that it does. The distraction of the fact that, because we came from slavery, and like I said, the pathology of being in sex farms, coming from sex farms, not really allowing to be free to be men, not being taught to be men. At that time on the slave plantation, we wasn't allowed to be men. We was allowed to be slaves. We was allowed to be sex slaves, not just to manufacture or breed more slaves, but also be for entertainment, for sexual purposes for the slave master. Sometimes the slave master wife can go to the barnyard and sleep with one of the black men. So I think that throughout the years, like I said, we didn't have no therapy for this. I think that being in society, because sexual perversion has been exploited through movies, through videos, through the music, I think it has developed a certain mindset where a lot of guys, they see a full-figured woman, instead of actually looking at her face, they constantly looking at her breast, they're looking at her behind. But I also look at the way American society promotes this. Like I said, they promote it in commercials, they promote it in videos, they promote it in movies, they promote it in a lot of things. And I think that, it doesn't help, but also the fact that how American society promotes it, or also going back to slavery, where, a lot of us came from sex farms, or ancestors that came from sex farms, you know what I'm saying, that never got any type of therapy for this type of pathology. So I think that yes, it causes a distraction when it comes to the progress, because like I was talking to a brother before, we was talking about black economics. I was on the phone with him, and he was like, "Yeah, we need to patronize black businesses more." Than he stopped like, "Damn, she got fat ass." You know what I'm saying? Excuse my language, but that just threw the whole conversation off. It just dissipated the energy, how easily distracted he was. And anybody that want to sabotage our progress, all they got to do is throw women in the mix that might be that might be full figures, that might be sexually attractive, because they're going to test you like that. You know what I'm saying? And see just how many of us can remain, focused on the progress and not be easily distracted, where we end up, possibly incriminating ourselves, in a way where the woman's like, he sexually harassed me. You know what I'm saying? So that could be dangerous, because it has been weaponized now to try to bait men, especially black men, to bait them in situations where now the woman is saying that she was sexually harassed. And you see a lot of brothers, athletes, entertainers getting blackballed, you know what I'm saying? Allegedly, they're supposed to sexually harass the woman, but it's being weaponized now because this culture, they're making the black man the face of sexual perversion.
Yeah, I mean, and this has a history. I mean, if you look at somebody like Sam Cooke, right, who funded the rights movement, right, the civil rights movement for Martin Luther King and for Malcolm X Shabazz, right? That's how they took him down.
Yeah.
That's how
they justified his murder.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because they have made us the face of sexual deviance, sexual perversion. No control when it comes to that, to justify his murder. We don't really know how Sam Cooke left here.
Absolutely.
He could have been murdered and nobody would really know. He probably didn't do nothing, but because this is the stereotype when it comes to black men, they try to justify it.
Right. And look at the same thing. So check this out. So meanwhile, we don't have any way to control that narrative that gets painted about us, because we don't have access to control mainstream media, right? So you take somebody like Bill Cosby, who attempted to achieve that type of goal, right, to purchase a mainstream news station, and what happens? They trip him up on what? Sexual deviation again. Deviancy. Sexual deviancy. And we all know how that story played out, unfortunately. So so we have some issues to conquer. I have another question for you, right? So when we talk about media, right? So media is just not right channel 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 or whatever, right? We have commercials, we have radio, right? We have newspapers, magazines, we have social media now. There's bananas, and sometimes people don't always equate social media, especially our young people, to media like the news or whatever. But this is all media that we don't control, which is why so many of us even go to jail more on Facebook. Like, that's insane. So we have these things, right? And social media is, I always think about my grandfather, right? He doesn't know I do this, but he used to always keep a stash of Playboy magazines, right? He doesn't know. I never let on that. But, a small stash, but I knew he had it. I can't imagine what he would be doing in a time of social media and Instagram where people are just
people are half naked or hardly got no clothes on the gram, on Facebook.
Yeah, it's totally naked. And then another piece of this, right? I can't imagine what children are thinking, when their moms, are
TikTok, twerking.
So then it paints another constructive, I think a deconstructive picture of, so what media we do control, this is what we are broadcasting on it. So my question to you is just, what do you think? What are your thoughts on music, ads, television, social media, like any of that? And do you think that that's equally or even more so controlling, our focus? Like, what do
Yeah,
you think?
I think that sex sells. You know what I mean? Uh,
All about that
Sex
money.
is selling. Yeah, even you see, but sometimes you see a burger commercial. You see the woman, you know what I'm saying? Probably big breasted, you know, cleavage showing, about to bite into a burger, doing it in a provocative way. You know, I think that it's a part of the marketing strategy now because they know that we have a culture now of overly over sexualized culture now. Because of Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, a lot of women on these social media in pictures in bikinis. Some are showing their backside, showing their behind if they got a big behind. So I think that the music, I think that commercial ads, I think that the videos, all working together collectively is sexually sexually exploitative, but it's a marketing strategy because they know sex sells. So yes, I think that it does affect our culture because
Yeah.
everywhere you turn, you can even look at bulletins and see bulletins where bulletins is being sexually exploitative. Where you'll see a woman, even if it's advertising Hennessy or some type of liquor or like I said, a burger franchise, you'll see sex.
Right.
Well, subliminally, you would see something that is sexually exploitative.
Right.
And
Right.
not only that, the thing even worse now, like you was talking about your grandfather with Playboy, internet porn, has skyrocketed, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah.
There's,
Lord,
a, there's,
God.
yeah, the internet porn is at an all-time high. So that's not helping because I believe that because of the internet porn, a lot of people it's starting to permeate in our society. A lot of people are going outside. Like I said, it helps develop that type of mindset, especially if you overly indulging in the internet porn and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? It would definitely condition your mind to think about sex a whole lot.
Right. Why? What do you think about men who want to marry women who are well clothed? I know that this happens a lot, and again in the Muslim world, but then they frequent the clubs and bars and spaces, right, where women are scantily clad. What do you think about that? Does that make you a better woman? Because I think some people mistake that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, would you have a problem if your wife was dressing scantily clad on social media?
I think that it would be an issue, due to the fact what type
Yeah,
of
keep it honest. Keep it
man
honest.
I try to be, honorable and respectful to my wife. So I expect that to be reciprocated,
Absolutely.
out of just having self respect for yourself, especially at the age, that we are. I'm in my mid 40s, you know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
just having my wife have the respect for herself first, you
That's
know,
right. That
the self
mutual.
respect will have, your self respect will make you want to have, respect for me as your husband.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that there's a conversation that really needs to be had even from our youth. I mean, in front of our youth about this, and it's hard to do that, right? Because when you have legislation that's pushing into the schools a conversation about sex, even when kids are in kindergarten, right?
Yeah,
I think it totally is corruptive of young minds. I don't support it. I've been very verbal about that in different venues, right? That those discussions have came to Congress even, and it feels like sometimes the world is just pushing morality out of the door, you know.
yeah.
And do you have any thoughts on how we can salvage that, or if we even can at this point?
It depends. The problem is that, mainly the black community, the reason why we get victimized with any type of agenda is because we poor. We don't really have uh, the systemic power to try to counter anything that we consider as morally incorrect. We, I can't really tell you as far as what to do. I know that we have a moral code where we against anything you know what I'm saying, that would morally corrupt the children.
Right.
So, you know what I'm saying? We lack economic power. We lack the financial backing that we need, you know, as a community to try to stop any legislation that we see that is morally corrupt when it comes to our children, when it comes to these schools. Um, all we got, you know, I could say that we could do is like keep pushing against anything that we feel like is morally corrupting our children. You know, just to try to teach them sex as, you know, as far as like, you know, them being in kindergarten is unheard of. It just seems like there's a hidden agenda behind that.
Right.
Why are you teaching them about sex, you know, in kindergarten?
Well,
There's a yeah.
Yeah, so no, I agree with you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but yeah, it all goes together, right? And it goes back to Sarah Barton, right? They understood the outcome of displaying her. They understood that it was gonna put us in an ill view of the world. They understood that it was gonna make us as a collective look barbaric, over sexualized, and to this day those practices, right, those formulated outcomes are still in existence. So my question is always, you know, because we're going to start to bring this to a close, like what are some of the solutions that you think, I think I wrote down a question, that ways, are there ways that we could go about not allowing this, right, to impede our progress? Because and this is the thing, right, and we talked about this, you know, in my house sometimes there's been times that in the past I've called people to fix things, and one time I actually put on Facebook, I said, you know, does anyone do landscaping? I really needed a landscaper, so I wanted to pay somebody locally to do it. You know, I want to, you know, support, you know, local businesses, and there was a couple of things that I needed. I know it was a plumber, landscaping, you know, it was a couple of things. It was about 4 or 5 things. And in every instance, the man, you know, it always became a conversation that was uncomfortable to me about something other than why you were here. And my thing is, when you talk about supporting businesses, I definitely want to convey the message that you need to come out and be professional. That's the first thing. You need to understand, you know, that you're coming into a woman's house, right? And that's a vulnerable situation, right, for women to allow men into the house, period, to do anything. And it's not playful banter with everybody, right? To you know, just proceed with that level of what I call disrespect. If you come here to do a job, you do the job and you leave.
That's right.
You don't come here.
Stay professional, yeah.
Yeah, you keep it professional. You don't come here talking about anything other than what it is that you're here to do.
That's right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I think that, you know, that's something that sidetracks, you know, that has sidetracked, you know, certain times workers. I don't know how other people feel about that, or if other people have experienced that, but I know that I have, and I didn't like it. For that same reason, I don't like to take my car to the car mechanic shop. You know, like I said, the conversation just always changes, and it's not about what you have on. It's just about people get, you know, men have a propensity that I have seen, and not all, not even half, not even most, but there's a small percentage who it's like they almost have just such a struggle, right, moving forward with total professionalism because they're dealing with a member of the opposite sex, somebody with a different gender. And that's what W.A.G.E is about, right? Advocating for gender equality. If you come into a house and a man is there and you're doing work, it's a total different conversation. You know, there's some things that we could do that maybe you could suggest as women that we can do to make sure that we're not being disrespected in that way. And then, you know, it's some women who probably, and I'm going to be honest and say this too. I know other women who actually use their feminine wiles, right, to have additional supplemental conversations with people who come to do work, right, and think that that's going to get them a discount or freebies or whatever it is. So I understand that goes on. I don't do it. I don't like it. Is there something that we could do as women to just be discouraging of that, because I'm telling you, I've purposely not ever been dressed up when people come here to do that, and it still happens.
It still happens. Yeah, I think that well, one solution can be just us trying to get some type of mental therapy. This is because a lot of us is going through trauma from what happened. Some of our homes, some of us come from homes with domestic violence, sexual abuse, pedophilia, and sometimes we this generational curse of going through that and not really having no therapy. Sometimes it comes out different ways, being sexually deviant, uh, sexual perversions. One of the solutions, like I said, is therapy. As far as the women, maybe one solution would be stop, don't be overly flirtatious. If if you're not trying to have somebody come at you like that, because some of these men, mentally, they're not in a good place when it comes to that. They don't really know how to conduct themselves in a professional manner if that is introduced in whatever's going on at the time. He could be working on her if she's being flirtatious and she's attractive, and the guy is not professional enough to ignore that and just stay focused on while he's there to do a job. You know what I'm saying? It could end up with him, trying to, come on in a way that she might not want. He might become predatory. You just don't know. You don't know where the man is at mentally. You don't know his you don't know his history. You don't know, his background. You just don't know.
That's right.
I think, because it gets in the way of the progress. If we don't trust each other, there's no way we're going to be able to work as a collective.
And that is so important to keep what you just said. If we don't trust each other, how do we move forward and be progressive as a unit, as a collective? And and again, this is a situation in the world. A lot of people don't even know their next door neighbors. They don't trust them. They don't want to talk to them. And then take a look at all the people who are registered sex offenders, right? In your area, because they, I saw a map in the area in which I live, and it was like incredible. Like the red dots were just concentrated, in our area. So how do you trust? Like, even if you trust your friend down a couple of houses, if she's watching your child and you trust her, you don't know who that uncle in the basement is, or who that other cousin up in the attic is. So, like I said, there's a lot to, be concerned with. But I think I do just want to say and starting to, just to send, we have to be so committed to having the discipline that takes anything sexual off the table when it comes to the very serious business of progressing our people. We cannot allow for any type of distractions to keep us off our goal. And with that being said, I'm gonna let you do the closing remarks and bring this all together, Ra, and we're gonna take it home.
Well, it starts with loving each other, wanting to understand each other as a collective so we can come together for the greater good of our community. We have to have these conversations about, the perversions that was enforced on us back in slavery, the broken homes that we come from, some of the dysfunctional homes with the pedophilia, the domestic violence, the things that gets in the way, and that's definitely a burden when it comes to our progress and our collectiveness. We have to gain each other's trust again. And I think that can't happen if we're trying to be in a professional setting and a woman feel like she's going to be sexually harassed, or a man feel like she's going to be sexually harassed. We're making comments to each other, making remarks that make somebody uncomfortable. It creates a phobia where it's going to be hard for us to come together as a collective. It's like I said, if we're not feeling that trustworthiness of one another. So I think that we have to address these issues so we can find a resolve to it. So we can find a way to nurture ourselves back into health again, so we can have a healthy collectiveness for progress. not just for ourselves, but the children too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, Rod, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you,
on
Fez.
tonight.
Thank you.
Manira just says sex sells in America in terms of the comments. Hello, Manira. And definitely we realize that Linda says, why is it that moment have to change their expression of themselves? Maybe she meant women has to change the expression of themselves when society accepts that men are sexual deviants, double standard. Did you want to comment on that at all?
Well, I think that, it's like I said, it's a stereotype too, but also, I feel like women expressing themselves, looking for validation sometimes make things worse than it's just more harm than good when it comes to like social media being half dressed, showing their backside, stuff like that. So I mean, I can't. All I can say is that we have to do better on how we interact with one another. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I agree. And I'm going to even supplement that, what you just said, the fact that men are increasingly doing the same thing. I mean, and maybe I see it like because as a woman,
Yeah.
I had to not unfriend, but unfollow, especially on Instagram.
And I hear that a lot. Yeah, a lot of women have worry about their DM is just being filled with men showing their private parts and stuff like that.
Right. And I'm like,
Yeah, it's bad. It's definitely a dilemma that needs to be spoke about, and that comes from growing up with all these perversions all around you. The sexual exploitation of women. Like you said, it starts with the magazines. Then it went from the magazines to the porno. Then it went from the porno to the internet porn, the rap videos, the music videos. I'm not going to just say rap, but just the music videos and commercial ads. It helped develop this type of mindset. When now, it's almost like a act of abuse when you think about it. Where the guy's not even trying to have a conversation with you, he thinking he's going to get your attention by the size of his penis. Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, these things are written, right? And we have to unwrite some of these things. And again, it's going to take discipline. It's going to take awareness, right? Which is what this show is about, and
Right.
just understanding that. And especially one thing I want to make clear to men and women this evening. It is not a compliment when someone calls you sexy. No one should comment on anything relating to sex and they don't even know you. So if
Don't
someone
even
says,
know you.
"Wow, you look sexy," that is not a compliment. That is somebody objectifying you
Objectifying. Yep.
and your body and how you look.
Mhm.
And how dare you insult me and say anything about sex and we don't
That's
even
right.
know each other. So it's an indicator, right, of a comfortability, right, of that deviancy that you was talking about, that it shouldn't exist. And
That's
you
right.
gotta draw your boundaries with people. You have to. And I know that I have to, because like I said, most Black women, we're shaped in a kind of way that
Yes.
you don't even have to be flirtatious. You don't have to do anything to put on.
No.
And it is, what it is in many instances. But I would offer that for anybody that's getting their body augmented to reconsider.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody whose
Yeah.
body already looked like what you're about to do. And like
And yeah, talk to them about their experience
yeah,
of
because
what they're going through. They had their body enhanced.
right, because
And yeah,
it's not good. Like I said, depending on where you work, or what your profession is, just depending on if you're talking to audiences and you want the focus one place, but the focus is somewhere else, right? And like I said, it's something that some of us can't help. I would say I'm gonna be honest, and I'm just being me. It has made me feel uncomfortable in my life. You know what I'm saying? Just getting that type of attention when I didn't want it. And just consider that, in terms of what you're doing. And if you're gonna do it for yourself, fine. If you're gonna augment your body, but understand where this came from, right? We talked about Sarah Barton this evening. We talked about her being put on showcased at zoos, and we talked about it being primarily because, and this woman, you should look her up because for those of you who don't know, and I know many on my
Sarah Barton.
You know, yeah, I mean,
very
this,
interesting story about his
your
sister. Yeah,
diseases,
very interesting. And like you said, how they objectify black women because
right?
they was full figure and made them into a sexual object. And they wanted to say they was overly sexualized, but it was the Europeans that was, overly sexualized because they lusted her because of her, full figureness.
Right. And now we're doing those things to ourselves. So, like I said, it just calls for us to just be aware of the history, be aware of what the outcomes that were, desired from those things, those events that took place, and to just not be in that place where we allow media or anybody who don't mean us well to have that type of power to configure our outcomes, as a very powerful, strong, wonderful group of people here in the
That's
United
right.
States of America. So again, Rod, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Again, I'm
Thanks for having me.
gonna have you back again. I love your perspectives on things, and just thank you for our community to come out and talk to us. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You have a good night.
You too. And as for everybody else, thank you so much for joining us this evening for another episode of W.A.G.E. And until next time, I'll see you then. Peace.